Hey everyone, ready to dive into a story that has the music industry in an uproar? We're talking about the indictment of Sean Diddy Combs. And let me tell you, this is not your average celebrity scandal.
No, no, not at all. I mean, based on that CBS New York video and all the legal commentary out there, this is some serious stuff. We're talking racketeering, sex trafficking, firearms. It's like a whole network of people allegedly involved.
It's wild, right? This isn't just like a parking ticket here. The feds are coming after Combs with a RICO charge. Ack. We'll explain that later. But first, let's break down the most shocking part. Combs is accused of abusing and exploiting tons of women, like over years,
Yeah.
forcing them into sex acts for his own, well.
It's crazy. And it's not just the accusations themselves. The language the prosecution is using really paints this dark picture. They call Combs's operation a criminal organization and the forced sexual encounters freak-offs. It's like they want to create this image of it not being just random incidents, but like a calculated system of exploitation.
Yeah. Okay, so beyond all the legal mumbo-jumbo, what does that actually mean for someone like Diddy?
Well, it means they're not just going after him for individual acts, but for building and running a whole structure to commit these crimes. Like, it's a mob boss thing. You don't just go after the one guy. You have to dismantle the whole operation.
Wow. Okay, that makes things a lot clearer. And the indictment goes on to describe how Combs used threats, violence, and even career sabotage to force these women to do what he wanted. I mean, it sounds like a movie, except it's real life, and that's messed up.
It really is. And those details about how he controlled them, those are super important because they show a pattern. You know what I mean? The indictment says Combs basically created this environment of fear where the victims felt like they had no other choice but to do what he said.
And then there's the evidence from the FBI, raids on Combs' places in Miami and LA. 3 defaced AR-15s, a huge drum magazine for ammo, and over 1,000 bottles of lubricant and baby oil.
Now, you might think, okay, that's wild, but what does it actually tell us? Well, let's think about it. Defaced firearms. That often means the owner doesn't want them traced back if they're used. And that mountain of lubricant, especially with those allegations of freak-offs and drugging victims, it suggests a pattern of abuse, a system for it.
You're so right. It's not just about being shocking. It's about how these things, they all fit together. They support what the prosecution is saying.
Bingo. It's more than he said, she said. They are backing up the victim's stories with hard proof.
So we've got the accusations, the strong language from the prosecution, and all this evidence from the raids. But then there's this whole other layer, like involving Diddy's business empire. The indictment says he used his businesses as like a front for these crimes, basically getting rich illegally. That's where the RKO charge comes in, right?
You got it. ARCO, short for the Racketeer Influenced and Corrupt Organizations Act, was first made to fight organized crime like the mafia.
But how does that apply to Combs and his companies?
It comes down to this. They say he used his legitimate businesses, his labels, fashion lines, investments, all that, to launder money from illegal stuff and to keep his whole criminal thing going.
So it's not just about separate bad acts, it's about the whole system that helped make those acts happen and made money from them. And that has huge implications for Diddy's businesses, right? I mean, lawsuits, boycotts, maybe his whole empire goes down.
You're getting at the heart of it. A RICO conviction can ruin you financially. And it's not just money, it's your name, your brand. The U.S. attorney even came out and said anyone with information should come forward, like more is coming.
Wow, okay, so it's like everyone's waiting to see how bad this gets. But wait, Combs' lawyer is saying that Diddy has been cooperative with investigators. Does it even mean anything when it's this serious?
Well, cooperative is a word lawyers can twist. Like, think about it. You ever tidy your room just enough so you don't get yelled at, even though it's not really clean? That's how cooperation can be in court.
So basically, it could be a PR move to make Diddy look better in the public eye. Doesn't necessarily mean he's admitting guilt or giving up anything useful.
Exactly. Real cooperation usually means you're helping the prosecution build their case, maybe even ratting out other people involved.
So we laid out the charges, the evidence, and just how bad this could be for Diddy if he's found guilty. Now I'm thinking about all the legal stuff that's going to happen next. What options does Diddy actually have? How do you even fight charges this serious?
Oh, this is going to be a wild legal battle, that's for sure. First, let's go back to that cooperative thing Combs' lawyer keeps saying. Remember, that word doesn't always mean what you think. Could be a way to make the public think he's not so bad, maybe even sway the judge later on.
Like planting a seed of doubt?
Yeah.
Oh, he's helping out, so maybe he's not the monster they're saying he is.
You got it. But real cooperation, it's more than just showing up. It means giving info that helps the prosecution, maybe even pointing fingers at other people.
Do you think there's any chance, even if Combs is only a little cooperative, that it could lead to a plea deal?
It's possible, but depends what he gives up. How helpful it is to the prosecution, you know? They might drop some charges, maybe suggest a shorter sentence, all in exchange for his cooperation.
I can see how that'd be tempting for both sides. Combs might avoid a long time in prison, and the prosecution, they get a win without the risk of a trial. But that's a hard pill to swallow for Diddy, right? Admitting he did it.
Huge decision, and his lawyers are definitely thinking it over. Plea deals always come with conditions, like maybe he has to testify against someone else. It's a gamble.
Okay, so plea deal's on the table, but let's say Combs wants to fight this all the way. What are some ways they might do that?
Well, one thing is to try and take down that ICO charge. That's the big one, you know? ICO is all about proving there was a whole pattern of crime, a whole enterprise.
So they could say even if those things happened, they weren't part of some big criminal plan.
Yeah, they might try to say it was just isolated things, nothing to do with Combs' business. Like, his personal life might be bad, but not a criminal organization, legally speaking.
That seems risky, though, especially with so much evidence pointing to a system of exploitation. The indictment says Combs used his employees, his money, all that, to make those freak-offs happen and then cover them up. It's hard to see how you separate his actions from his business.
You're right, it'd be a tough one. That's why they might try to attack the other charges too, like say those encounters were consensual, try to change the story from force to, everyone was okay with it.
But would that work?
Yeah.
There are claims of threats, violence, pressure on their careers. How do you prove consent when all that's going on?
Oh, that's really hard. And a lot of times it means trying to make the victims look bad, questioning why they're coming forward. It can get ugly, and the public doesn't like it much.
Yeah, I see why that's controversial. It takes the focus off Diddy and puts it on the women who are accusing him. Are there any other legal tricks they could try?
They could try to get some evidence thrown out, say it was obtained illegally or it would prejudice the jury. Like maybe try to get rid of those freak-off recordings, say it was an invasion of privacy.
Ah, the old fruit of the poisonous tree. But wouldn't that be hard to do, especially if the FBI got those recordings legally with a warrant?
Not impossible, but a long shot. But in cases like this, lawyers try everything, even if it's a slim chance.
And I bet they're looking really hard at the prosecution's case, trying to find any little mistake they can use.
Oh, yeah. They'll be picking apart witness statements, checking how evidence was handled, all that. Anything to make the jury doubt what the prosecution's saying.
So this is more than just a legal fight. There's public opinion, too, and how all this affects Diddy's legacy.
Right. His lawyers know that. They're not just in the courtroom, they're fighting in the public eye, too. And these days, with social media, that's a whole other battlefield.
It's like trial by Twitter, right?
Yeah.
People judge so fast just from headlines and sound bites. Even if he's found innocent, I don't see how Diddy comes out of this looking good.
Nope. Just those accusations alone, that's already hurt his image. We're talking abuse, exploitation. People don't forget that easily. Doesn't matter what the court decides.
And then his businesses. We said a RICO conviction could ruin him financially, but even without that, his reputation's on the line.
Absolutely. People might stop buying his stuff, his partners might ditch him, investors get scared. His whole empire could fall apart, not from the law, but from people not trusting him anymore.
It really shows you, in this day and age, your reputation is everything. Money, fame, that can't always save you when you mess up.
It's bigger than just Combs, too. This case shows the dark side of the music industry. You know, how power works there, how people get taken advantage of, and how everyone stays silent.
You're so right. It's not just one guy, it's the whole system that let this happen. Are there ways to protect artists, young women especially, from this? Can they speak up without being punished? The industry has to ask these questions.
Totally. This case, no matter what happens in court, it's making people talk about accountability, being open, and making the industry safer and fairer.
It's like a wake-up call, right?
Yeah.
We can't ignore this anymore. And it's not just music, it's about holding powerful people responsible everywhere.
Absolutely. And it's about believing the people who've been hurt, making sure they feel safe to speak up and get justice.
Okay, so we've looked at the accusations, the proof, what Diddy's lawyers might try to do, and how this is hitting his reputation and his businesses. Now, let's try to predict what happens next.
Well, the big thing coming up is that hearing to see if they'll keep Combs in jail until the trial.
Right, because the prosecution wants him locked up, saying he's a flight risk, might hurt someone.
Yep, pretty standard in a case this serious, especially with the charges and how long he could go to prison for.
Makes sense. But his lawyers, they'll try hard to get him out on bail, won't they?
Oh, absolutely. They'll probably offer a big bail amount, maybe house arrest with one of those ankle bracelets.
Yeah.
Say he's not going to run or hurt anyone.
Tough decision for the judge. Got to balance, right?
Mhm.
How bad the charges are, Diddy's rights, innocent until proven guilty, all that.
Exactly. They look at things like, does he have strong ties to the community, money, any criminal record? How strong is the evidence against him? And would he be a danger to the victims or witnesses if he's out?
Wow, lots to think about. Let's say, just for fun, he does get bail. What's next? Straight to trial.
Not always. There's usually time for motions, legal back and forth, maybe plea deal talks.
Plea deal. We talked about that before. Remind me what that looked like for Diddy.
Well, it's basically both sides making a deal. Diddy pleads guilty to some, maybe all the charges, and in exchange, the prosecution gives him something.
Like less time, dropping some charges, asking the judge to go easy.
Yep, that's it. Avoids the whole trial thing, which is risky and expensive, but means admitting you're guilty, giving up some rights.
I bet that sounds good to Diddy, especially if he might go to prison for a really long time.
Yeah.
But why would the prosecution do it? What's in it for them?
Sometimes they're not sure if their case is strong enough. Maybe evidence isn't great, or a witness might change their story. Plea deal gets them a guaranteed win, even if it's not for everything. Or maybe they want Diddy to snitch on others.
So it's all strategy, both sides figuring out what's best for them.
Yep. Lots of calculating, going back and forth, real legal chess match.
Okay, now imagine the deal doesn't happen. We do go to trial. What's that going to be like?
Media circus, for sure. Witnesses on the stand, experts presenting all that evidence, both sides trying to convince the jury they're right.
Those recordings Diddy allegedly made, the freak-offs,
Yeah.
those are going to be big, right? That's pretty strong proof.
Oh, yeah, huge part of the case. But the defense, they'll attack those recordings, say they're fake, shouldn't be allowed, don't mean what the prosecution says they mean, taken out of context, that kind of thing.
And they'll probably go after the victims, right? Say
Yeah.
they're lying, making it up.
It happens a lot in these cases, though it's risky. They might try to say the women are doing it for money or revenge.
Hard to believe that when there are multiple accusers all saying the same thing.
It is, but the defense's job is to poke holes, make the jury have doubts.
All right, let's say the jury finds Diddy guilty for most or all of it. What kind of sentence are we talking?
With racketeering, sex trafficking, guns, could be really long, maybe decades. RCO is no joke.
Shows you, nobody's above the law. Even rich and famous like Diddy, he might end up in prison for a long time.
And that's why everyone's so interested in this case. It's not just about what happens in court, it's about power, holding people accountable, and what this means for an industry that's kind of ignored this stuff for too long.
Yeah, this case has really got people talking about how the music business works, how artists get treated, especially by powerful people, and how abuse gets swept under the rug.
Exactly. Whatever the verdict is, this has already changed things. More people are aware, survivors are feeling braver to speak up, and hopefully the industry is going to have to clean up its act.
It's like, we can't pretend this isn't happening anymore. And it's not just music, it's everywhere. Powerful people need to be held responsible.
No doubt about it. And we have to believe the people who are speaking out make sure they feel safe to do so and can get justice.
Well, this deep dive has been eye-opening and honestly a bit heavy. So much to think about, and we still don't know how it'll all end. Thanks for joining us on this journey into the Sean Diddy Combs indictment. We'll keep following this story, and we'll be back with more deep dives on other topics that need our attention. Until then, stay curious and stay engaged.